Good evening. You've joined me in a short prayer. God, thank you so much for the ability to to come here tonight and just share my story. And I hope that, and I pray that you open the ears of someone in this room or everyone in this room tonight, that they might hear something that'll help them in their recovery. Amen. First, I'd like to I always thank my wife for being here tonight. Brandy, she's sitting here in the front row and putting up with me for the last, 10, 11 years. This May, we just celebrated 10 years of marriage. So, my CR is usually on Monday nights, too. We're over in Cape Coral. There on Coronado Boulevard. It's the First Methodist Cape. And my sobriety date is January 16th, 2018. I always start my testimony on the day I was born. It was a Super Bowl Sunday. January 14th, 1982. It was a bitter cold day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. San Francisco 49ers were battling the Cincinnati Bengals. My whole entire family was in my parents' small home, including all the local town drunks that I would later call uncle, because that's what you did in a small town. Everybody was uncle, and you didn't know why. I must have heard the commotion of the alcohol-fueled party and decided that was my cue. I decided to join the party, and my mom's water broke at halftime. I decided to enter this world in the middle of a party. This would be my life in a nutshell for the next 28 years. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved entertaining people, making and seeing them having a good time. I always liked to be loud and see people laughing on the account of me. I would sing and dance and imitate funny things I saw on TV, and I still do. It's how I got my wife to fall in love with me. Right, babe? My early years were spent in Glassport, Pennsylvania. It was a great town where everyone knew everyone, but I wouldn't recommend driving through there today. If you do, pack some heat and lock your doors. My parents divorced when I was around 13, and my mom moved me and my three younger brothers about an hour away to South Park, Pennsylvania, right before the gangster accent started to stick. South Park was great, low crime, and edged the huge county park. The next 5 years of our lives was spent hunting, fishing, golfing, and BMX with some really good friends. Great people that we are still friends with today. I graduated high school, and I received a tool belt for my graduation parting gift. It was made of leather and held heavy objects. It was great. I joined the Carpenters Union. It was there that I learned how to be a real man. Drink like a real man, complain like a real man, everything like a real man. Those old guys were no joke. Drinking on the job all day. And now, I haven't been much of a drinker up to that point, but it's what I witnessed growing up, so it kind of felt natural. My grandfather would work all day and stop at the bar on his way home and stay there until he was hungry enough to come home, go to bed, and then do it all over the next day. That's how old school Pittsburgh was. All of those old guys I knew now are gone, though. I don't think any of them really got any help. They all died pretty early deaths. At this point in my life, I had moved out. I got a small house and a reliable vehicle. I was hanging out in nightclubs with a fake ID all over Pittsburgh. I got caught up with some well-connected Italian kids downtown. We would party all over. I never remember paying for too much. I had a great personality, and I would always make them laugh and have a great time. In return, I didn't get whacked. So that was fun. We would stay in bars after they closed and do other things to keep the party going. I was always such a good kid growing up. I never really got into any trouble. I guess you could say this was me sowing my wild oats era. I wasn't drinking like an alcoholic yet. I really enjoyed driving buzzed, and I got a couple slaps on the wrist for that. but that was the only run-ins I have ever had in with the law. I took a traveling job in the union, and it paid very well for a kid my age. Plus, I got to travel all up and down the eastern coast. I had a blast. This is where I started to experience anxiety and morning jitters. Before I knew it, I was drinking every night. I would wake up and be all anxious and shaky. I would go to the doctors thinking I was having a heart attack, and they told me to slow down on the partying, and I would think I need to find a new doctor. My dad started to come back into my life. He offered me a job in Cincinnati, and I was like, okay, I'll be right there. I moved to Cincinnati at the drop of a hat, and I brought my entourage with me. The only thing is, my entourage was #demons. We're starting to get a little out of control. Long story short, 2 years later, I landed myself on a park bench drinking out of a paper bag. This was my worst bottom. I called out to God for the first time ever on that park bench. Psalms 55, 16 through 17. As for me, I call out to God, and the Lord saves me. Evening, morning, and noon, I cry out in distress, and he hears my voice. I sobered myself up enough to drive back to Pittsburgh and fell through my mom's door, and I woke up in the ICU of Jefferson Hospital. I was like, Mom, I love what you did to the place. I stayed there for almost 10 days. The doctor told my family I may not make it out of detox. The whole 10 days I was getting poked and prodded. I thought for sure I was going to end up with McDonald's hamburger, but definitely wouldn't be a Kobe ribeye in my condition. After I was pushed out into the blowing snow, the staff gave me 2 thumbs up and said, good luck. Luckily, my mom picked me up before the frostbite set in. I spent the next year sober on my own willpower, which really made life easy, but and no drama. So a year later, a member of my family confronted me about being sober, who probably should have been in the program herself. She told me first that she didn't believe me, that I was sober, that I could never drink again with the way that I am. She told me this with a drink in her hand. So I did what any of us would do. I said, oh yeah, I'll show you. And 3 months later, I ended up in a new apartment and a roommate from Pittsburgh at the Cleveland Clinic. Yeah, we agreed on a 28-day lease to see how we liked it. You guessed, I was in a rehab. It was there that I found out about what was going on with me, but I still wasn't convinced I was an alcoholic yet. I thought I was just in some sort of depression. They released me after 28 days. The driver drove me to my grandma's house, 30 minutes away. He dropped me off with a bag of sweat clothes, a half carton of Marlboro Reds, and I walked into the door and sat down on the couch to my gram. She looked me straight in the eyes and asked me what I learned in there as she cracked open a delicious, frothy Keystone Light beer. No joke. After I got out of rehab, I did what any of us would do, and that's right, I got married. And where did we get married? We got married in Jamaica at an all-inclusive resort where you have unlimited booze. I was able to hold it together for our wedding and most of our marriage, and then I started to end up in hospital detox again. She was so confused and angry at the same time. My issues were now her issues, and my in-laws were just thrilled. So to help my relationship with them, I did what any good son-in-law would do. That's right, we moved away to Florida. Now they really love me. I may write a son-in-law help book one day. But it does turn out that moving to Florida was a good thing. This is where my sobriety really started. There is so much of it here, and most of us don't live near family drama anymore, which helps too. We just get to hear about it over the phone, 1,300 miles away, in the sun and the warmth. My sobriety journey starts off with the most tragic event in my life. My wife and I were trying to conceive a child our entire marriage, In 2017, we had finally achieved that goal. Then, after a few months of doctor visits, we were told that the baby had stopped growing and we would have to abort. We were devastated. My wife was beyond devastated and struggling physically and mentally. But as for me, I had to make it about me and start to get drunk again. I was drinking at home, work, and on my commutes, hiding it all over the house. I then realized one particular day, driving home drunk, that I didn't want to do this anymore. I was at the intersection of Cape Coral Parkway and San Carlos, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Jesus, please help me." Psalms 142, 1 through 7. I cry out to the Lord. I lift up the voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him my complaint. Before him I tell my trouble. When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you to watch over my way. That Sunday was Father's Day. I decided to go to church. I went by myself and I sat in the back. I was Methodist growing up, so I looked for the closest Methodist church in the area. I landed in Cape Coral First Methodist on Coronado. I walked in and everyone was so happy and nice, and hey, how you doing? I sat in the back and opened the pamphlet I was given. I read through the whole thing, in the last page, all the way at the bottom. It read that you have a problem with any addiction to call this leader guy. Leader guy says we don't use names, so I call him leader guy in my testimonies, and he loves it. The phone weighed a ton, but I called him and left him a message. He called me back, and he was all happy and joyful and like, "Hey, how you doing?" So it made me sick again. He asked me to meet him on a Monday night, and I agreed. I attended my first CR. I walked into the large group, and everyone was so nice and joyful. People are dancing in the pews and the aisles. Hands are up and screaming for Jesus and joy. And I'm like, these people are nuts. I was like, okay, when does the punch come out? And we're going to have to wear some weird toga or some weird ritual. And they were like, no. And I was like, oh, dang. I sat there in the back, and I listened to everything that night. I knew in my heart that I wanted what everyone had in that room, joy and peace. I wanted to laugh again and cry. I had such a hardened heart at that point. I continued to come for a little while, but I never got involved. My attendance faded away like a politician's criminal charges. It was then one day in January that I decided that I needed to clear my mind and of my thoughts of anxiety. So I decided to drink again. I came home drunk, and my wife noticed because she secretly works for the FBI. The look on her face was the worst look of disappointment that I've ever seen in my life. I looked at her face and then her eyes, and at that moment realized, man, she's really pretty. I don't want to see that again. I better get my stuff together. I called leader guy immediately. He was like, Jimmy, where you been? I was like, hey, leader guy, I need to see you stat. I met him, and he told me, and I told him I was done. He said, I need a sponsor. I said, okay, how do I get one? He said, you asked me. And I said, and so I asked him, and he said, no. And I said, okay. He said, you have to go. He said, you have to do a few things for me first. He said, you have to go to as many meetings as you can in the next 90 days. And I said, okay. Wait, yeah. And that is what he tells me. I heard every day, no matter what, but we both agree to disagree on that request. Okay, done, I said. He then said, I want you to do anything. You need to be willing to tell me you're going to do anything to stay sober. And you have to promise me that. And I said, huh? And he said, you do these things, and I will never ask you to do anything that I didn't do. And in that moment, I thought of my wife's pretty face, and I said, okay. I became a CR member and a member of AA. I got a sponsor, a home group, and I started in a step study as soon as possible. Since January 16th, 2018, I have not had one urge to drink. Nope. Instead, my recovery is trying to handle and stay on the rails dealing with me and my crazy ideas. 6 years and I'm still a mess. I hate admitting that in front of my wife because I'll have an idea now and she'll be like, "You're a mess, remember?" And I'll be like, "Thanks for reminding me." But when my real recovery started, I started heavy in the steps. I was so anxious and nervous, but the first few steps, along with my sponsor's guidance, made me realize how God is working in my recovery. Like God is in control of my life, and I don't have to worry about anything else. My life is already planned out, and I'm just along for the ride. That's good to know. We can stop worrying about that now. Ephesians 1:11, in him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. Then I did the fourth and fifth step. Best thing about that is that I live to tell you about it. No, just kidding. I learned a lot about me. These bad traits I had. I was like, man, I don't want those anymore. And I asked God to remove them. And then bang, step 6 and 7. God takes them, and sometimes I pull them back. Then he takes them again. Then I pull them back again. But after going through that list, I realized the people that I had hurt. This time I sincerely wanted to make things right. So I had to face these people and apologize for the troubles that I had caused. I did these apologies. I thought it would take me forever because I lived in Florida, but God sent them to me, and He sent me to them. My wife made me wait for hers. I was deep into mine with her, and she stopped me. She said, "Is this an amends?" she asked. I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh no, I'll let you know when I'm ready for yours." But she eventually came around. Acts 3:19. Repent, therefore be converted, and your sins may be blotted out, so that times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord. And now we get to the end of the steps where we start to give back everything that helped us stay sober. I really tried to keep a good balance of service and being a husband to a spouse that carries 0 of our traits. She comes here to support me, and also loves being inspired by stories of hope and gratitude. Since January 2018, my life has been so good, and I don't mean Facebook good, it's for real good. I've had a few sponsees, and I've had a few sponsorees. I don't have the greatest track record, but they tell you here, the ones that don't stay are a reminder of what you once were. These odds are hard to hear, but only 1 out of 10 stay sober. I have witnessed so many tragedies since I've been a faithful CR patron. So I encourage you to get involved. I really enjoy sharing my story. I always get so much feedback on how it helps people in their recovery. I always try to stay into some kind of recovery service plus outside service. I did Big Brothers and Big Sisters for a little while, and I recently joined and started training to help out at Valerie's House. It's a local nonprofit for kids who lose guardians and are struggling with grief. I have 6.5 years of recovery, and I no longer drink. I no longer have the frustrations in life that come with being an active alcoholic. No, I find absolute peace and joy in life, which when you find that, I tell you, my friend, that is your goal in life, to keep it. Yes, I like to tell people I am still a mess, but I am a manageable mess. You see, I have painful shortcomings, but it doesn't stop me from pursuing Jesus and keeps my sponsor guessing his decision to sponsor me. I still have big dreams, hopes for me and my wife's future, and a lot of these things God doesn't have planned for my future. Sometimes I'll try and get them without him, and that, my friend, snatches the joy and peace right out of your life. fills it with anxiety and worry. And then I have to call my sponsor 3 times a day, and he starts thinking about smoking again. It's a mess. Quick story, I wanted a boat since I became sober. I begged my wife for years and years. I finally got on, and I bought the boat, and I couldn't afford it. I was miserable for 6 months until I finally sold it. The guy came to pick it up, and he said, I bet you're going to miss it. And I smiled real big and was waving it. He headed down the road with it. I like to say that I want mountains sometimes, so God will give me the whole mountain on my own. And then he giggles and says, now take care of it on your own. Ha, ha, ha. I don't know about you, but I can't take care of a mountain on my own. But I am sober, coherent, and chasing dreams instead of the bottom of a bottle, sick and puking. My goal in life now is to maintain joy and peace in my household. That is all I want out of life. I don't need fancy name brands or popularity. With all that comes of that is a high maintenance, and you better be prepared to take care of it. Nope. I just want to experience peace and joy for me and my family. I hope this testimony touched one or all of you tonight on what sobriety is all about. Peace and joy for you and the people closest to you. I love you all, and there's nothing you could do about it.